on sustainable projects.
Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for your prayers and petitions, for your sense of civility and cooperation as we strengthen our community unification in order to make us a wonderful, safe, civil and stable society. A couple of minutes of open line. 1:30 or thereabouts, our friends, as they normally do, but have been absent, understandably so, for the last 3 weeks or so, from the HSA will join us. We talk about World Breastfeeding Day. But between now and then, get a chance to speak to Simon Watson about 12:30 or so, and, get informed. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village. Convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. I hope so far the week has been going good for you, and as each hour, minute, second, every day that unfolds would even be better. Sometimes we dig deeper. Sometimes we have to just love a little stronger, love a little longer, and love a little deeper. Even in the midst of much, there's still many who lack, and even those who may lack may appreciate the bounty that they have. What is it that our parents and their parents told them that they're telling us? If you have health and strength, you have hope, you have it all. They say, we joke, we hear the politicians sometimes say it because they've heard the comedians say it. Sometimes we can't differentiate between the two. Simply the whole notion that money can't buy happiness, but it certainly allows you to choose your own kind of misery. Well, sometimes, my friends, we have to look at where our wealth is measured. There are many of us with nothing. When we look at it, we're like, wow, not even enough to do what we need to do. But there's a joy because they have a spirit of not just forgiveness, but of graciousness. They're thankful. And it isn't that there aren't trials and challenges, there aren't any sense of the tribulations that they feel, but they know, even for them who may not necessarily subscribe to any religious indoctrination or other, but they have a spirit of love, and that transcends all that they do and everything. They're gracious and trying to be thankful. So, as we take our break at 12:30 or thereabouts, Mr. Simon Watson will come in. We'll have a discussion about this regimen. We posted a number of questions, and we're so grateful for the immediate response in an attempt to answer and help us to understand the perspective. We'll tell you more about that after the break when he enters the studio and that discussion unfolds. And as we work together to make us better, to make us a society where we come together. I've always said, and increasingly more so, doesn't mean that we don't all have differences of opinion, or that sometimes that discussion, to put it nicely, gets heated. Doesn't mean that sometimes we lose friendships or we say and do things that we regret. But if we look at what is Cayman, and it may be the same elsewhere, we're told it isn't, Here you have a society with almost 1,000 different nationalities. Now I exaggerate just maybe tenfold. And they all seemingly get along. For my own bit, you can hold it against me if you so choose, but I say without apology, I say thank God. And as on a personal level, I interact with all people from many different places, different professions, different life experiences. I'm enriched. I am honestly enriched, especially now in a time when I say it, not you. Some of you may say it's inflammatory, and you probably do. My apologies if it's such, but it's my reality. I feel like you're under house arrest. Many of us are walking as if we're walking in eggshells. We don't want to offend any law or policy or regulation, not because we don't want to be incarcerated, but because we are normally a law-abiding, civil people, and I think that is very evident in all of us, for the most part. During last year and to date, trying to make sense of nonsense, trying to very much, comply with everything, and that I think is what separated us from everywhere in terms of, if we want to call it success, that we've enjoyed to date. The safety that we have, the security, and the serenity, which has been very attractive for some who have now parlayed that into incredible windfalls. They're making a lot of money. Good for them. Maybe there'll be a conscience at some point and appreciate what has. But maybe there'll be a calling to us to come together. Now, we talk about the bubble, we talk about the attractiveness, and everybody's running here as if it's a safe haven. Well, let us see if we can be receptive and provide a clear, convincing understanding of what is expected of us so that we continue to live. Have you ever gone to a space where, there's a few people in the space and it's okay? Then a few people more and it gets a little bit less okay. Maybe it's because your disposition is that you have a very, wide sort of personal space, Maybe it's just that it's getting crowded and you feel, wow, the air is stifling here, it's getting hotter. Hope somebody would, turn down the AC, make it cooler, open a window. And the space gets a little more crowded. It doesn't matter. If there's a wedding reception that you're so happy to be there as one of the participants, or you're just, one of the people who are invited because this is the best couple ever to renew their vows or, maybe start a new chapter in their lives. But even in the best of settings, for some of us, once that space becomes too crowded, at least too crowded to them, they may become agitated. They may become a little bit uneasy. They may need to get outside for a little fresh air. Well, think of that space as this country. How much can we handle at one time? If too many come in at once, it's sort of like when we're cooking a fish dinner. We don't put everything in the pot at one time, Think about how we make it. And think about what we put in last and what we take out first. Well, for those of us who don't know, and I would not say that I do any better, but unless we want a fish to, mash up and boil away, we don't leave it in there forever. And even some of the bread kind. We need to be mindful of all of that. Doesn't mean that one person's opinion is the only opinion. It doesn't even mean that it's right. But what it means is there must be a receptiveness to share our opinion in a responsible, respectful way. Being cognizant of what is transpiring. Be appreciative that some people can't take it all at one time. One man's meat is another man's poison, we're told. Well, no much different now than what's going on. There are many of us for whom one little bit of authority, give them a title, a pay raise, or a position, and it goes to their head. They can't handle it. Then there are others that would take the world on their shoulders and you wouldn't even know the burden and the stress that they carry. Even if you draw close to them, they're good at not just masking, they just have a resolve and a resilience. There are those of us who give and give everything. There are those of us who take and take everything and still want to take more. Well, it's a matter of where we are. And this is not the time for us to depart from that ethos that has made humankind, supposedly, the smarter ones. But we see increasingly, whether it's in the political or business or even other avenues, the emerging presence of despots. We're told that little learning is a dangerous thing. Well, that, my friends, is why I covered your prayers for provision and protection. I truly enjoy the level of confidence and confidentiality that have been placed, but I also appreciate that we haven't even scratched the surface yet. Hey, 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255, or 925-3261. I don't know how you say it, but I've heard it said, heavy is the head that hangs the crown. If you ever think it's difficult, maybe being in the position for a minute will give you a sense of perspective an appreciation for what they have. With that, whether you subscribe to it or not, whether you believe it's true or not, I think we pray for those in positions of authority, from our police officers to our parents, from the principals and teachers in the schools to our politicians. Let's pause and take a break. When we come back, we invite you to a discussion. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
You see how hard it's raining?
Yeah, and I don't have time to fight traffic and get my lunch from Subway. I have so much work to do.
Why don't you order Subway by using the Let's Eat or Bento app? Save time, stay dry, and get your sandwich fast.
I never thought of that. Great idea. I'm going to order now.
Order me a veggie pizza while you're at it.
And a cookie platter for the office.
Too busy at work or home? Is the rainy weather stopping you from dining out? Order your favorite Subway sandwich, wrap, or pizza through the Let's Eat or Bento app with fast and reliable delivery. Subway, eat fresh.
King Sports Center takes pride in being more than just an ordinary gymnasium. For 14 years, their multi-purpose facility has been providing the community with a variety of sporting, recreational, and relaxation activities. King Sports Center has a bowling alley, lounge bar, multi-purpose rooms, powerhouse gym, rock climbing wall, bungee jumping, a 10,000 square foot rink, and so much more. For more information on the variety of services, call their friendly staff today at 946-5464 or email kings@candw.ky or visit www.kingsportscenter.com. King Sports Center, your one-stop shop for fitness, recreation, and relaxation.
Optical Outlook Caymanian Village location has moved. Same great services and products, new location. We've moved to Anderson Square in central Georgetown. It's a much larger space with dedicated parking. Please call us on 746-2020 to make your appointment at our new location today. Make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Please come see the difference with Optical Outlook, Cayman's premier optical provider.
The Department of Education Services and the Public Health Department would like to inform parents that health screening for new students will take place during the summer until August 23rd across Grand Cayman schools. The Public Health Department will be visiting your district schools and will be contacting you regarding school health screening appointment. Health screenings will also continue during September and October for those children who were not screened during the summer.
Cancer sucks. It's unpredictable, and many of us have been affected in some way. To raise awareness, AI Rentals is launching Fet for a Cause, a brand new K-Mass band for 2021. Join us on the road on August 7th, and for just $50, you can play Mass and raise awareness within your community. All proceeds go directly to the Cayman Islands Cancer Society. Sign up at www.carnivalshop.ky or find more information on social media at Fet for a Cause. Show your support, make a difference, and Fet for a Cause this August 7th.
Each Tuesday and Thursday from 7:30 a.m. to 9 a.m.
The Tuesday and Thursday edition of The Business Buzz is brought to you by Lee's Office Products, offering the best products at the most competitive prices, satisfaction guaranteed, and great service. Telephone 949-2303.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. And thanks very much. And if I might say, and hopefully it does not make him feel, overly complimented and somewhat uneasy, but Mr. Simon Watson has immediately taken up an opportunity and an invitation. As we mentioned yesterday in the program, we had shared a number of questions that were sent to us that we then tried to put in a perspective, asked one or two people that we believe are academics. And from that, don't mean that they're smart, just mean that they are accustomed to a very rigorous sort of environment where they won't look at things, for some of us, in a very calculating way to say, well, what are the facts? We then submitted them to the Office of His Excellency, and immediately Mr. Watson accepted the invitation to come on as we talk about the regiment. I think that's a testament to the responsiveness, to the willingness to say, let's engage in a discussion and to get people to appreciate what is transpiring, especially in a time like this where, I don't know about anybody else, but our thoughts go everywhere, our concerns about if I can, with great respect to our mothers, because they're always so loving and nurturing. Our fathers are the protectors and providers, whether that's right or wrong. That's the mindset many men have, and when they're worried about their jobs, just like their wives, mothers, and sisters are, they're worried about, can I pay the bills? What's going to happen? Sense of fear and trepidation, all these things transpire, and that can only potentially make things that much worse. So good and timely, accurate information can help us to, at the very least, have a point of reference. So very much appreciate you coming on and sharing with us, and hopefully to our listeners, we would respectfully ask, we'll hold the calls just for now, so that the questions that we initially submitted yesterday, maybe we can get a sense of discussion, discourse, maybe even a better understanding.
Thank you, Sterling, and it's fantastic to be here, and thank you for having me on. I think it's really important that when people have questions about anything that happens in government or in the regiment, it's important that there is someone to be able to answer those questions. So really happy to be here, and happy to get onto those questions.
Thank you. And we will ask, Parliament for maybe whatever questions come up as a result of discussion. I'm thinking to a parliamentary proceedings, whether across the globe, and there's a substantive question. Supplementary, Mr. Speaker, and so we will never intend to be offensive or, some people are accustomed to certain, journalists having a particular way of throwing people in front. No, that's not my style. I think you can ask a question with a smile and be as cutting as you can. With being as vitriolic, I prefer the former.
No, absolutely, and I will always answer the questions as honestly as I can, and I think we can get off to a great start.
Thank you. Could I then, just so that our listeners understand better, maybe two things: formal introduction of yourself, and where you fit within this in terms of ministry, governor's office. Maybe you and I are partners in a restaurant, and give them an understanding who is Simon Watson. And where you reside.
Okay, so good afternoon. My name's Simon Watson. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Simon Watson. I'm the commanding officer of the Cayman Islands Regiment. I'm a reservist, so what that means is that I have a full-time job, and the regiment is my part-time role. Like 96% of our members in the regiment, we are reservists, so we have family, we have a full-time job, and then we in effect volunteer our time to serve the regiment in the Cayman Islands.
Okay, and in terms of structure and positioning, we know that maybe the financial secretary is on the Ministry of Finance or wherever it is. We know that all this. So the regiment, is it under the governor's office, the police commissioner, under Miss Norma, the director?
Okay, yeah. So the regiment sits under the Ministry of Home Affairs, under the MLA Bernie Bush, and that is the ministry that we are administered through. But the regiment reports directly to the governor. Because he's in charge of the regiment from that side in the same way the police do.
Okay. And again, just me. We have a politician, a political elected minister in cabinet, under which Home Affairs falls, under which the regiment falls. But the reporting is directly to His Excellency's office.
That's correct, yeah.
For those of us who may not understand that or may find that conflicting, is there, if you can, explain how that would work?
And I'm not an expert in it, so please forgive me. But it's it falls, I believe, under the Constitution. I think it's Section 80, where the governor is responsible for the security of the Cayman Islands, and which is why the police commissioner reports directly to His Excellency. And the regiment's remit is both disaster relief and security. So because of that, it comes down to the governor from that perspective.
Okay. I won't maybe ask any more questions into the structure, but why not just make it given that, as you said, there's probably most of us who would appreciate that the police and internal and external security and defense and that stuff falls on the office of the governor. Why not just make the regiment be there and fill it with the elected politicians?
To be honest with you, I'm very happy to say that is well above my pay grade. So
we'll leave that for now. Okay, I'm with you. Don't ask questions from which other questions are better asked. Primarily, now we were extending the invitation, and what prompted the questions. There was just a very, very recent press release indicating complement of vehicles and other things that were arriving, and as a result of that, we were once again, I would almost say inundated, but bombarded by numerous questions. Some, I confess, were questions I would ask just as an inquiring mind and the like. So maybe start at the outset, and we'll go through the questions that we submitted initially. The first one was, what are the primary uses for these vehicles? Maybe ask, in answering that question, let us know what vehicles arrive in case we are still unfamiliar with them. If you could, please.
Absolutely. So we've got a number of vehicles that have arrived recently, and these are support vehicles. So they support the operations that we undertake. Two of them are cargo trucks, and these have the ability to take personnel in the back. So there is a secure seating system that sits in the back. It looks a bit like a roller coaster ride that is locked in, so it protects people when they're traveling in the back of the vehicle.
So those of us with a military background would be familiar with those being where we would be gates rolled down and we can be deployed and move over interesting terrain.
Yes, I mean the ability is the truck can basically transport 15 people. So whether that is members of the regiment or whether that is civilians that have been evacuated from a location, but you're absolutely right. The vehicles themselves are designed to be able to traverse all types of terrain. And we'll talk about that a little bit further on. So we've got the transportation of personnel, transportation of evacuees, but also equipment. So that seating structure can come out. We can transport equipment, we can transport supplies, we can transport debris if we're clearing roads of sand and fallen trees and broken buildings. Then that can all be transported in the back of that vehicle. So it's multi-purpose. We have two of those. The third vehicle, which is another truck, which is a similar chassis, so the same type of vehicle, that is a flatbed and it has a crane on the back of it, and that is designed to be able to pick up and move debris, but also supplies, equipment. So if we are dropping off pallets of supplies, water, anything like that, food, aid, tarpaulins, tents, that is what that vehicle is used for.
So in local sort of like construction and moving, a crane truck of some sort would be similar?
Absolutely. I mean, these vehicles are not magic military vehicles. They do the same thing that people see trucks doing every day on the roads.
So one of those?
One of those, yeah. We also have two, for want of a better word, military ambulances. The word ambulance in Cayman has a specific meaning to a paramedic unit, so I don't want to use that word improperly, but in effect, military ambulances. We obviously are aware that there are only a certain amount of ambulances in Cayman, and clearly during something like a mass casualty event, there would be a need to have additional capability to move casualties. So they're not ambulances in the terms of a paramedic unit, but they are able to move casualties from the incident site to a hospital. And each of those ambulances can actually take 4 stretchers. So they can also take 6 people seated inside them. So they can be used to move people or move casualties. But again, those are 4-wheel drive. They're able to traverse a multitude of terrains, and they have a very high wading depth, which we'll talk about in a bit.
In case people are missing, so unlike the ambulance that we would see come to a scene when we dial 911 for response, where the medical personnel on board with the equipment to do the stuff on site, this is basically, let me move you from here, whether you're alive or not, get you somewhere else.
Absolutely. And I think we have to be very, very clear on that. The EMS do a fantastic job, and their ambulances are very highly equipped and also very expensive as a result. I mean, they have the equipment to be able to, really save your life en route from the accident site to the hospital. And I think, they do, as I say, they do an amazing job, and their equipment is designed for that. These vehicles are not in the same category any way, shape or form. They're designed to be able to, if you had a broken arm or a broken leg and you were stable, then they can move you from the accident site to the hospital.
Okay. And then the other vehicles?
And then we have a wheeled loader, which is a, for those, for want of a better word, it's a digger that can also have forklift truck forks on the front. And that is used for moving of supplies, for pallets, but also for clearing debris from the roads. And the ability to lead with that vehicle post-hurricane, for instance, to be able to clear a route for other vehicles to follow. And then most importantly, we have a mobile field kitchen. Because clearly, we all need to be able to deliver food to both members of the regiment, but also to the public in terms of a major disaster. So with the ability to actually cook as well.
Okay, so that's a mobile field kitchen. Can cook or deliver.
Yeah.
Okay. As we go into our break, where do we get these vehicles from? maybe from the local hardware store.
Unfortunately, there's not a huge amount of places that sell these vehicles, and we were very keen that we wanted to save money. We wanted to make best use of the public funds. So we have said that these vehicles had to be used. They had to be well maintained. They had to be low mileage, and so because of that, we managed to get them. They're ex-MOD, so ex-Ministry of Defence from the UK. They're through a civilian company that takes vehicles from the MOD, fully services them, repaints them, and then packages them and ships them to customers. And that's who we got them from.
Okay, so former service vehicles within the UK military, defence, and then so on. Okay, good way to start. Do we have to take that break? Well, just like that, we have to pause. Mr. Watson, thanks for your time. When we come back, we'll continue. We'll ask the other questions. And we invite our listeners to please stay tuned.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
Summer, the season for backyard gatherings, beach parties, office socials, and camps for kids. Make the most of your summer party and leave the catering to Subway. Choose from small and large sandwich platters or double meat wrap platters and top it off with optional cookie platters for dessert. Or ask about our Subway Box to Go with the option of a 6-inch or foot-long sandwich, 1 cookie, and 1 bag of chips. Cater your summer with Subway. Visit subway.ky for menu options. Subway. Eat fresh.
For the first time in over 45 years, the University College of the Cayman Islands is having an alumni homecoming gala dinner on October 28th. The event highlights the kickoff of the UCCI Alumni Network, a community of professionals helping the university and one another. If you're a UCCI graduate, join the network today and let your fellow classmates know about it. Visit ucci.edu.ky/alumni and come give us a hand with UCCI's first ever homecoming. The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you. We are a non-for-profit member-centric plan with a democratically elected volunteer board of trustees representing all sectors of the Cayman Islands economy. Chamber Pension has an all-in expense ratio of 0.72% over 16,000 members, $430 million in assets under management. We were the first multi-employer pension plan approved by the regulator in the late 1990s. And today, we are still strong, secure, and are here for employees and employers alike. If you would like to join or request further information, visit chamberpension.ky. And for information as it happens, follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Email admin@pensions.ky or call 745-7630. The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you.
Census 2021. Cayman, get ready. Census starting 10th of October 2021. Census. What in town are you ready? Census. Georgetown, we coming. Census. Your info will be secret. Northside, get ready. Census. Information is secret. Census 2021. Census starting October 10th. 2021. Census 2021. Census. Census. Census 2021 Census. Everyone counts.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us as we talk about the regiment. We got Lieutenant Colonel Simon Watson sharing with us, and I think I should have wrote it down. You're the commanding officer.
That's
would that
correct,
be the right
yes.
way to put it? Yeah, thanks. I misspell or mispronounce a person's name but that's only because I don't know any better. Till I do, I get it right. So thanks.
No problem.
We're going through a series of questions, and we thank you for that. Now we received these questions, and the other one, how are the vehicles going to be typically deployed? How they're going to be used, when, and so on. So help us understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we would deploy the vehicles as and when we needed them. Realistically, if we had to move supplies from A to B, we would send the vehicle with the driver and possibly a second person, and that vehicle would drive from A to B with the supplies, and it would deliver the supplies, and it would come back. If we were deploying, if, for instance, we had... let's just say we had a lot of sand in one area that needed to be cleared post-hurricane. We might send a vehicle with 15 members of the regiment in, armed with shovels, and they would go to that area, and they would get out, and they would clear that area. I mean, realistically, it's about using the vehicles for what we need to complete our tasks.
Okay, and that's sort of the response to disaster relief.
Absolutely.
On the flip side, since it's disaster relief and defense, if you had a crowd in one area to supplement the police security aspect, you could deploy the 15 as well to help crowd control?
No, we're not trained for that. We don't anticipate training for that. We've not had a situation in Cayman that we've ever needed to do that I'm aware of.
Neither have I, but but it's defense and disaster relief. So I'm just asking this for clarity.
Well, I think it's very important to understand that if there was a public order situation, that's the remit of the police, and they're very capable, and they would deal with that situation.
And the regiment would never be involved in helping with that security and the policing and the crowd control and whatever else we call it.
If I could say, if I had a future crystal ball, I'd buy lottery tickets. But I can never say never. But the fact is that that's certainly not something that we're trained for, nor are we equipped for that, nor do we anticipate that happening.
Okay, and I know you. Thank you too. You shared with us with the vehicles and ex-US sort of military vehicles have been so normally now they're designed. The question we had was what purposes and in what circumstances were they designed initially?
Yeah, I mean they're designed for exactly what we want them to do. So they are they're capable of traveling multi different terrains. They are long lasting. They are capable of carrying up to 6 tons. So great for supplies and equipment. And they're four-wheel drive. They're also able to wade, so to move through water up to 3 foot. I believe one is 1 meter and the other is 1.2 meters. So again, from a flooding perspective, these vehicles are able to get to people and evacuate or to get through flooded areas.
Okay, I know we alluded to it just prior to that response, but when we would looking at deployment in like scenarios as you referenced, maybe share with us what sort of advantage or that this would have over maybe another mode of response.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we talked about before, they're multi-purpose. So it's not just a case of, if we had a bus, well, a bus would be great to move people. Sure, but you couldn't then put loads of debris in the back of the bus or loads of pallets of supplies in the back of the bus. And if you had a flatbed truck, then you couldn't put people in the back of it safely and securely. So having these vehicles enables us to carry out a multitude of roles. As we mentioned before, their four-wheel drive capability allows us to traverse either roads that have got debris on them, or if we needed to leave the road and go off-road and to enable to get to where we need to go. So those are the sort of reasons we have these type of vehicles. In terms of I think we talked about earlier on the sort of likely scenarios for deployment. So let's just say a hurricane's coming. It may be that we've got flooding prior to it, as we had with ETA last year, and we need to evacuate families from their homes. And the regiment did that exact task. We didn't have the right vehicles in place, and it was made substantially more difficult because of that. Now we have the ability to actually get to people in their homes, take the families out, put them into the vehicles, and then transport them to safe shelter. That's prior to it. Post the hurricane, you could be looking at people gone missing. You have to deploy a number of people to an area quickly to find them, so search and rescue, deliveries of supplies and aid, and clearance of debris. So all those reasons.
All right, thanks. I know you referenced the bus, and then if I may just think back to Hurricane Ivan, that immediately in its aftermath, a lot of water was settled in certain areas, and there were a number of school buses that were used, still working, given that their engines are a bit higher, to do just what you said. Some they quickly removed some of the seats from the back. Some kept the seats in to get to people to move supplies, in and out. So in that case, a school bus could potentially work, but for the off-road thing. So maybe school buses could have been a potential resource. Giving you an example,
I think as you just said there, you use what you had available, and that's one of the key things that the military does. It adapts, it overcomes, it improvises, and we would use whatever we needed. But clearly, you're going to, if you could see into the future, you would make sure you were prepared for that
as best as you can. Yeah.
Exactly that. If your house was on fire, you would use the bucket you had.
Right.
If you knew the fire was coming, you'd have the fire brigade there with a fire engine.
That's why we see wonderful fire code we have with sort of fire suppression systems being installed in many places. Some people in their homes, if they can afford it. In speaking to that, you talked about. I think quickly back to Ivan again. There's a famous picture, I think, on the front page of one of the media houses where the now Home Affairs Minister and a very famous local heavy equipment operator was on a backhoe or driving around doing the same thing, clearing. Could not mow backhoes. I mean, you've got one, what do you call it, a wheel digger or trencher?
A wheel digger, absolutely. Yeah. And again, it's a case of if we need it, can we find those locally? Do we need to have them? We've got a wheeled loader to enable us to clear that debris so that our vehicles can get out to the people that we need to get to. Is there something that we need a backhoe in the future? Can we save money and just lease it after an event from an equipment rental place? Quite possibly. So it's about looking at what we need, but also being realistic with budgets, because it is about budgets.
Okay.
I mean, we talk about when we would need to deploy people. I mean, we've been very fortunate in Cayman that we've not had any huge serious mass casualty events. We're all very aware that we have a great EMS, we have a great fire service, great police service, but they are there to do their normal day-to-day roles. If there is an emergency, a huge an emergency that overwhelms those services, that's when you need support, and that's what the regiment can provide in terms of if you had a building collapse. For instance, look at Miami, Surfside. There were 300 rescuers involved in that building. God forbid anything like that ever happens here. You're going to need support to the fire and rescue services for that. If there was we had an incident the weekend where people thought they'd seen a plane go down just off the Western. Now, had a plane gone down, had a plane with 200 passengers gone down on land, you're going to need first aiders, you're going to need medics, you're going to need stretcher carriers, you're going to need vehicles to move people. So, and I think that's the key for people to understand about the regiment. Think of us as an insurance policy. We are here to be able to support the fire service, to support the police, to support the EMS, to support hazard management. Whoever it is that needs that support, that's why you have the military to be able to step up and support them in times of an emergency.
Yeah, we think back to that incident with the fuel storage facility just right down the road some time ago. But with that, and as we go into this next break, Mr. Watson, we know in the press release it was announced that there are a number of things coming, generators, spare parts, and different things. Other than what was sort of disclosed, any other sort of equipment going to be sourced or used that might be coming?
No more vehicles this year. Budgets are obviously pretty tight, and we have to be aware of what we've got. There'll be a number of different items. We've got some tents that have already arrived. We have different operational equipment, but nothing in terms of vehicles or anything like that.
Any other equipment? Operational, what does that mean? What else has been sourced or potentially be used?
We've got a water purification system that's arrived to enable us to take seawater and turn it into drinking water.
So reverse osmosis system of some sort?
Exactly that. It's a reverse osmosis system. So again, if we're deploying to whether it's Grand Cayman or the BRAC or Little Cayman, if there's a water shortage, we're able to...
What sort of capacity do we know?
It is 600 litres an hour.
So not much?
No, not massive, but it's man deployable. Now, we're very fortunate in Cayman that we have a number of reservoirs. We have the storage tanks.
We have RO systems as well locally.
Exactly, we do. But we also have to recognise that the regiment is not just designed to support Cayman. It's to support our sister islands within the Caribbean. And there may be needs that we need to go there. Look at St. Vincent and the Grenadines recently. After their volcano, they had no drinking water.
Right. All right. So after this break, we had submitted a series of questions, and Mr. Watson is gracious with the time, immediately responding. So we will continue the discussion, ask the questions that we have submitted yesterday, and we'll continue the discussion. Please stay tuned for Talk Today.
From district to district, moving through the waters to Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. Your station, your voice. All things Cayman. One radio, many people. This is home.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
With your latest headlines, I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins. The Ministry of Tourism and Transport and partners will be hosting a press briefing to share the plan for remobilization of the tourism workforce in partnership with the private sector and releasing the results of the Tourism Stipend Survey this Thursday, August 5th at 10 a.m. at GIS Studios Government Administration Building. In international news, authorities in the Chinese city of Wuhan will begin testing its entire population after a handful of positive coronavirus cases were detected there. Wuhan has recorded 7 locally transmitted cases, the first local infections in more than a year. The city of 11 million people shot into the spotlight after the coronavirus was first detected there in 2019. The number of drug-related deaths recorded in England and Wales in 2020 was the highest since records began in 1993. In total, 4,561 deaths related to drug poisoning were registered, equivalent to a rate of 79.5 per million people. Rapper Dizzy Rascal has been charged with assault following an incident in South London. The 36-year-old was charged after police officers visited an address on June 8th. A woman at the property had suffered minor injuries but did not need hospital treatment. Dizzy Rascal is due to appear in court on September 3rd. These are your headlines. I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins.
For the latest in news and information,
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon, welcome back. And Lieutenant Colonel, or as my good friends from across the pond says, Lieutenant. I have to quite got that right. Simon Watson. Is it Lieutenant or Lieutenant?
It depends if you're American or British.
It's football, okay? That's all we know. Doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, it's football.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Well, I'll pay for that later. All right, so thank you so much for joining us and immediately responding to some of the questions we posed yesterday and coming in today as we talk about the regiment. And the other question when we were asking about equipment that we had submitted was specifically, drones or other surveillance equipment, being sourced and or used now or foreseeable.
Yeah, I can say categorically we don't have any intent to purchase drones. It's not on our urgent items that we need. Now don't get me wrong, drones are used in disaster relief across the world in terms of search and rescue, in terms of identifying victims, in terms of using heat to be able to
infrared, flare and so on.
Exactly right. That. So, and there's some fantastic kit out there, but it's very expensive,
right?
And that's not something that we could justify purchasing.
So potentially, given that, we have great hobbies here. We have wonderful companies or entrepreneurs who have used it in commercial applications, real estate, for example.
Yeah.
So potentially contracting, borrowing, having a good friend who would share because it's in the national interest. Potentially, the use of that may be foreseeable.
Potentially, absolutely. We're very lucky that we have the police helicopters as well, the police air wing. Because they have great capability on there, and
audio, visual, heat seeking.
Exactly. So they, so we would obviously work hand in hand with them if there was a search and rescue. Obviously, the search and rescue would be led by the fire service, but it may be that they needed extra people to support them. Regiment would support, and then in conjunction with potentially the air wing with their assets. So no plans to buy any drones.
Okay, sorry. I'm one of those curious minds.
No, it's absolutely right.
Sometimes I sit and they say, "How old are you? What if are you 2?" No, I just love to learn and to know, and sometimes one question leads to 1,000 more.
Definitely.
So thank you for being so amenable.
No, absolutely fine.
Just you said that remind. I know, like the fire service and the men of us, who go fishing, and we call the fire service to check our radios and stuff. So they're fantastic. There's an amazing group of men and women in that service. So incredible. You can't say thanks to them enough.
Yeah, they are. They're really good.
But if there was a search and rescue and that's being facilitated by them, 2 things immediately jump to mind. the helicopter is a policing thing, right?
The helicopter is the police air wing. Yes.
So how would that, if the fire service is utilizing or sort of coordinating the search and rescue, then who's coordinating and controlling and dictating, directing the operation of the helicopter?
So the ability is that all the emergency services can talk to each other. So
Right.
they have the same radio communications
right.
to be able to talk to each other.
Mm.
So it may be a case of that this is, as I say, this is the fire services area of operations. But in effect, they might be saying, right, we're going to cover this area of ground. The regiment, we need you to cover this area of ground. And police air wing, can you please look from this area to this area because we can't get to it on foot, for instance.
Different reasons.
Absolutely.
All right. Then Coast Guard.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Again, we live on an island, and I just love the water, and the Coast Guard to me is just phenomenal. I mean, that's just a personal thing.
It is phenomenal, and that's the amazing thing. You know, we haven't had a Coast Guard before. We had the Marine Unit, who were brilliant, and obviously that's morphed into it.
Brilliant is a little stretch, but we'll go there.
But you know, we have that, and they're building up to deliver that capability because we are on an island, and we do have, we have that water that needs patrolling.
So our search and rescue, we got the air wing, we got the fire service. Again, where's the Coast Guard in this whole thing, other than everybody talking to everybody?
Well, again, if the Coast Guard, if that search and rescue is going to be in the water, then clearly you've got Coast Guard, you've got wave runners from the Cayman Islands Fire Service, and then you've got the air wing. To be able to deploy that, and you may be saying, as we had recently, we had a swimmer that was missing, and thankfully that swimmer was found alive and well, and that's great. But it may be that you've got the regiment, going along the shoreline to see if the casualty has been washed up. So, we have to recognise we have a small group of islands, but if we're looking at Grand Cayman, we are a small island, and actually, when something like this happens, it's going to be a lot of people needed to be able to deliver, hopefully, a successful, safe
and hopefully, as civilians, we can come out and help as we've seen with the rescues and searches for boats as well.
Absolutely, and I think that's key. I mean, the great thing about the regiment is it fits between the full-time emergency services and civilians helping, because it is able to be deployed very quickly. It is trained. We know that when we deploy the regiment, all those members of the regiment are first aid trained. They're basic water rescue trained. They know how to. They have the right equipment. They have all that with them. So they're fit. They're healthy. They're able to enact that rescue. But they're also part time. So they're not being paid full time.
Okay, we are just joining us. We're talking about the regiment. Reservist Lieutenant Commander. So the commanding officer for the regiment, Mr. Simon Watson, joins us in response to a series of questions we formally submitted yesterday. We were asking about equipment. So the other question we submitted was, guns, munitions, and that sort of thing, lethal or non lethal. If they have been acquired, will be acquired, and are used, deployed, and the like. Specifically, that sort of equipment. Yeah,
absolutely. So, as I said before, we have two remits in the regiment. One is disaster. Our primary one is disaster relief, but there's also a security remit. And I think we would be very naive to ignore that situation. We know that after hurricanes, for example, there is often armed looting, and that is just a fact of life.
Has that happened in Cayman?
I wasn't here in Hurricane Ivan.
I'm not aware of it, but I'm told no. But from what you shared, do you know?
I have heard stories of it after Hurricane Ivan, but I wasn't here. So now, obviously, when you say armed, that could be with knives.
Anything. That could come with a pen.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, fair enough.
And but we have seen recent cases in Irma, in Dorian. So this is, and we have to recognise this is not just about Cayman.
But in Cayman, have you seen armed looting? Iowa, Dorian, Nemo, whenever. Anytime it came on to our knowledge. When we do the due diligence and know what transpired at any point in our history, have you noticed?
Me personally, I've been here 8 years. I haven't seen armed looting in Cayman.
Any historical reference to it? Probably not. Right?
You have to recognise that the regiment is not just for Cayman. Yeah. This is to be deployed within the Caribbean.
Okay.
So we have to, when we look at what's happened in Caribbean neighbours recently, there are security situations which need support. And I think it would be very remiss to have a regiment that is partially designed to be able to deal with security risk and not arm them.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, I would love a world where no one is armed.
Well, but unfortunately, a world with the politicians and prisons would probably be a better world. Right. That's different. My friend's going to hurt me. All right. So the other thing, you said security and you said disaster relief, and I really, really personally want to understand it. For me, this Absolutely, is one of the few times. So you inferred, but just specifically. So we will be acquiring or have acquired guns and whatever.
Yes, yeah. So
okay, tell us about what we have and what we're going to get.
Absolutely. So we have we call them weapon systems, but they're basically
speak in English to me because if it's a gun, what kind of gun? If it's a bazooka, I want to know that from a bubble gun. But tell us what is what.
Okay, so it's a rifle, which is the same as the armed response units for the police use. So we're using the same weapon systems.
The MPs or whatever they're called.
It's actually a Sig Sauer.
Okay.
So it is, but it's the same one in terms of training, in terms of being able to work alongside. So it's the same weapon system. It was acquired. They were acquired earlier this year under the previous administration. They take time to order and go through all the checks and manufacture, and so they will be arriving at some point this year. Those will be used on the range. For training, and they are there as a last resort in terms of security if we had to deploy somewhere that there was a security risk.
So back to the example earlier, crowd control, the police was there and they need to complement, just like the search and rescue and the disaster, the regiment could be called in to complement the security aspect of the police.
I mean, to be perfectly honest, let's give a real life example. In 2017, following the horrific terrorist attacks in Manchester in the UK at the Ariana Grande concert, a lot of people lost their lives. There was a much heightened terrorist threat. The police said, we need more armed officers on the streets, but we don't have the capability to be able to deliver that. And the military said, well, we can provide a short-term capability to put armed officers in support of the police, and that was done for a very short time, and then they stood back down again. And that is the sort of worst case scenario, if you like.
So potentially that could happen in a Cayman context.
I would find it very unlikely that would ever happen, but the fact is that anything could happen.
Yeah, and just like how we would send that team of trained personnel with the equipment, including what do you call it? I call it guns. You have a better word for it.
Weapon systems. But
weapon systems. Okay. Yeah. Sounds very.
You can call it guns. It's fine.
No, that's what it is, right? I mean, some sort of killing machines that would probably be deployed overseas to some of the OTs and the like to assist us if they ask for us.
Absolutely. I mean, if you let's do a really simple scenario. You have a hurricane. There's no food and water. They need aid, but the security system is in place, and there's no trouble. We would deploy without weapons. We would go there. We would hand out aid. We'd hand out water. We'd deliver first aid, and then we would leave when that country has sort of come back to its feet. But a different scenario. Hurricanes hit. There's armed looting. A lot of the police force isn't available for work or because they're off island. What do you do then? Right. Do you deploy then and say, well, we're here to deliver aid and first aid, but we can't leave the base because there's a security risk? Or do you say, well, we will deploy with the weapon systems?
Yeah. I've always believed, that if you have a society that devolves into that immediately, we've got bigger problems, So like Manchester, the reference, 4 years ago, I gathered that just after what did the press call them? English football hooligans. I think the military was temporarily put as well to assist somewhat with crowd control.
No.
So that was fake news.
Yeah, the military is, as we say, a very last resort, and we have very good policing in Cayman and in the UK that are perfectly capable of dealing with. They've had a lot of experience, unfortunately, in the UK with their football hooligans.
Most unfortunate term. The media is just horrible sometimes.
Yeah, but we don't need the military for that. I mean, the thing with the military is they have the ability to do lots of different things. In Cayman, yes, they will have weapon systems, but they will. There is, I can never say never be used, but the chance of them ever being used. I mean, I've heard stories that people say, "Oh, you're going to come here with riot shields and batons and start doing that." Why?
But not impossible.
But the fact is very simple. Do we have riots every Saturday? Do we need that? No, we don't. And that would be, as I say, that's something that the police would deal with if they needed to, which they don't, because there's no risk of it.
Well, we consider deployment in many ways. I think from international media reports, again, if the media is correct, in Japan now in response to COVID. There's consideration of the military complementing the police.
Absolutely.
Right
Australia have brought people in. And this is the point. People need to understand that the military, whilst they are in their camouflage and they do have weapons, they are there for a multitude of reasons. So let's just look at Australia at the moment. They have a big quarantine situation in a number of their cities, and they're bringing in military because they need more people on the ground. British. Let's look at the UK. 1975, before my time, there was a dustman strike. So a refuse collector strike. So they brought the army in to help clear all the rubbish. I do remember this. In 1990, there was an ambulance strike, and they brought in the army to help move patients in ambulances. 2002, there was a fireman strike. Again, they brought in the army to help deal with that. Tanker strike. There was flooding in the last few years, and they've brought in the army for that. The army is this wonderful tool that you can use for pretty much anything, and that's the beauty of it. So I think we have to recognise that, yes, the army has a warfighting purpose. No, that is not in Cayman, because we're not designed, set up, equipped, or have any purpose to do that. We're here. Yes, we have a security role, and at the end of that day, that security role does involve having the ability to access weapons if necessary.
Okay.
Same with the police. We have a fantastic police service here. They are an unarmed service with an armed response, because at some stage they may need that armed response. Unfortunately,
the one-legged man with two legs. Interesting. All right. Again, thank you for the candidates. Thank
Absolutely.
you for we can be as direct. Thank you for receiving the questions beforehand, and as sort of direct as we are, still cordial and civil, and there is no malice.
No, absolutely. And I think
I appreciate that.
No, I think the point is that we don't have anything to hide.
Right.
The regiment is here to serve Cayman.
Well, the best place to hide something is in plain sight, right? So, Mr. Watson,
not if it's a big truck. It's not. It doesn't work.
You'll be surprised. Thanks for receiving these questions. And here's the other one we've been asked about you in relation to. Let me read it as we send it. Is a military approach the best way to address disaster preparedness and response? Is a military approach? We talked about it, we danced around it, but let's ask it directly.
Absolutely. So we've talked a little bit about this today, but it's a great question, and it's can someone else not do that? Now, as I said before, the beautiful thing about the military is you have it as insurance policy because you don't know what's going to happen. Is it going to be a hurricane? Is it going to be a building collapse? Is it going to be an earthquake? Is it going to be a pandemic? Is it going to be a major fire? For all of these, we're able to train the military to do that. Now, the military has a certain mindset and skill sets, which is that it goes and does the job. It's under military law, so there's no chance for them to say, oh, you know what, I actually don't fancy going out after that hurricane. I think I'm just going to stay at home, thank you. Well, I'm afraid you can't, because you're in the military, and the military says that you're going to go out and help people, and that's what you're going to do. There is a certain ethos in the military, very much around team building, about looking after one another, about supporting each other, to be able to go into situations that are dangerous, have a risk of loss of life to both the people going in to do it and to the people that they're there to help. You also have an internal discipline system within the military that allows you to say, right, you 10 go over and do that, you 5 go and do that, and people are used to that. You train together, you work together, but we also have to recognise that there is disaster relief and security. There's two parts to it, and as I say, hopefully we won't need security. But for instance, if there was a pandemic again, the police have their normal policing duties to do, and they had to implement a lockdown. They had to put all those roadblocks up to make sure that lockdown was in effect and that curfew was working. That's a huge amount of time and stress on them. If that happened again, clearly you'd see opportunities for the regiment to say, well, we can man those roadblocks, allowing those police to go about their other frontline duties. So that would be a security role. Do they need to be armed? Of course not. No, there's no necessity for them to be armed. But they need to be there in a security presence.
Right. Well, certainly that discipline, that structure, we know the military brings, without question. It helps many to be better as a result of, they probably would have been favored. But not unlike the policing and even the general civil service, if you're told, as I understand, if my immediate sort of reporting line of command says to me, today we need you to be down at this place to do this role, I risk loss of a job if I don't respect and respond to that request from my HOD, as it were. as a civil servant. So very much similar to some extent. Not the same level of reporting, but somewhat similar, like the police officers and the like. Again, here's a military approach where and it grieves me, this use of guns. Let's one of that. So what about HMCI and the CERT teams? Could they not be expanded and have that capacity? I'm told by a number of people, mostly from the Nordic countries, that have said, they're training with an ethos within their society that they have inculcated over generations, that you come out as a people to respond, to assist. There's a level of training, even through some sort of military-like thing, but more of a civilian approach. I harken back to what we witnessed, and was so evident in the immediate aftermath of Ivan. Everybody, from the guy who only had a shovel to the guy who had a backhoe. When I say guy, I mean male and female, young and old alike. And we were clearing roads and working together. And anybody who sort of, took a can of corned beef that wasn't theirs, the rest of the community go, really? And they put it back. There was a level of love and support immediately, all right? The one or two offenders, I think, were more chastised by the look and the comment than by anything else. Doesn't mean that it hasn't happened. So I come back to training up a society, utilizing HMCI as a coordinating entity, expanding and upskilling that which is now evident within the CERT, the Community Emergency Response Teams. Could that not have been more palatable and attractive to the society than the fatigues of a military uniform, potential with military-looking equipment, traversing the roads that we have admitted isn't the Cayman ethos that we see in England, Jamaica, or anywhere else? Would that be not less offensive?
I think I think the great thing is we have these certs and we have HMCI in place, and they are all part of a community response. So the regiment, we had a meeting with VARS, which is the Volunteers Association.
Right.
Absolutely. And so we met them actually last Monday, and it was great to see them all. And the regiment will obviously work very closely with the community, with the CERT teams. And HMCI as part of the NEOC, National Emergency Operations Centre.
Yes.
We sit under the operations side with hazard management, so they're our partner agency, and that's all part of this bigger picture. You have the CERTs, you have the regiment, you have NEOC, you have HMCI, you have all the emergency services as well. They're all part of that picture. There is obviously additional things that the military brings in terms of being able to deploy, in terms of being able to say, look, we're going to need you to stand up away from your job for a weekend or a week. We need you to do additional training. We need you to all be first aid. We need you to all be fit, because we're putting you into situations that are strenuous. And they are going to involve carrying people, and they are going to involve having to get in and out of windows to evacuate people, and they are going to involve having to wade through water. So we do have a certain amount of physical tests that they have to do to get into the regiment. And you have
like
to
the police and so on, prison and so on, right? A level of fitness, hopefully. That's what we're told anyway.
Yes, I can't comment on other services, but we so I think everyone has a fitness test to get in.
Right.
The military has it every year as well, so you have to maintain that level of fitness. You have to maintain that ability to train. Our men and women are training every 2 weeks. And it's a commitment.
Very taxing.
It is taxing, yes. My hat goes off to them, because this is a reserve regiment. If we had a full-time military, the cost would be untenable for Cayman, and it just wouldn't work. So we are having something in between, which we're asking men and women to come out and serve Cayman, and they've put their hands up and they've said, I want to serve Cayman. And these are the same people who would be operating that backhoe, who would be clearing the decks.
Gotcha.
But they're doing it now as part of a team, and they're saying, I want to give back. I want to serve my community.
That aspect of community giving.
Absolutely. And that's but we have, there's so much the regiment can do going forward. And it's not just about that search and rescue or that disaster relief point. There's a huge amount we're doing with just upskilling our men and women. We've put people through recently a junior leaders course, so they're now moving from troopers to lance corporals, and they're learning how to public speak. They're learning how to give lessons. They're learning how to build a team and take pride in themselves. And I've already we've got people who've been in for 5-6 months, and we've got people saying, I've met someone, she said, my son's in the regiment, and you would not believe the difference.
The transformation.
And that's amazing.
So if I may then ask, I think we all agree that a standing military army for any country is a huge financial commitment to the country, whether it's the UK or the US or whoever. Budget aside, financial considerations aside. But in that respect, that fitness component that you referred earlier, to carry people to be trained, would the person who applies and isn't, so two questions, part A and part B, who applies and doesn't satisfy that would probably not be accepted into certain aspects if the fitness component isn't there. And if they are there and they don't maintain that, they probably will at some point in time not be able to continue in that role. There may be some other role. Fair assessment.
Potentially.
Potentially.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Most likely. There's always exceptions.
Right.
So, for instance, if we had someone who was injured and lost a leg,
or even just put on too much weight, had too much cassava cake, and just never paid attention to their weight gain and got physically unfit. Fair enough. And I don't mean to be. And Mr. Lynn, if I could just crave a couple of minutes without commercial interruptions. That health benefit that we see is immensely important for our society in terms of the decreased cost to the country, the increased productivity, and the increased quality of life. So I'll come back then. If we had, again, some would say, "Oh, being too idealistic," but if we had, if it wasn't evident, I'm a strong proponent of what I think the CERT program is and could be, because then all of us in our communities would be a part of it. We know our neighbors more, we'll be more involved. The potential for a neighborhood watch, the potential for understanding your neighbor. So I am a strong advocate. If I'm wrong about that, then I need to be quickly corrected, but I see the benefit. So if you would add that layer of a fitness component, because some of us, we want to be healthy. We understand that a fit, healthy nation, we've seen some surveys about the happiness index, we see some surveys about the healthiest people. Yeah. And if we were to translate that, take away the military component, the fatigue, just the psychological presence of that uniform, what it can do for some people, right? It can make them inflamed. It can make them be so compliant that they don't even think. So if we were to have that component of the fitness to those, just like how we say the regiment officers and the trainees and the applicants, if they don't satisfy that, could we not have that as well?
But here's the thing, Sterling, yes, I totally appreciate that some people might see that as all their fatigues, it's aggressive, potentially. But that's their perception. And, it's up to me to work with my men and women to say, well, we're not aggressive. We're not here to hurt you. We're here to help you. Those fatigues serve a massive purpose. First of all, they identify us as being part of the regiment. The men and women that wear those fatigues are proud to wear those fatigues. They of
course, yes.
But it's important. We have uniform to identify us as being part of a unit, a part of an organisation, and they're very proud to wear that. They're proud to wear the Cayman Islands Regiment's beret. They also have a secondary impact, is that they're designed to protect them. So they have material that is flame retardant. They have the ability that you're not going to get cuts and scratches through it. That's why they have the gloves and why everything is in place. So there's a lot more to it.
Granted, sir, but if I was going out in my yard just to water the yard, the use of plants, I could do my shorts and slippers. If I was going to cut down the trees, in absence of not doing any better, I'd probably put on long pants and long sleeve shirt and wear a hat and gloves. Now, we could don the appropriate equipment to go into the bush to do stuff. That aside, and we don't belabor it, we don't be argumentative.
No, you're absolutely right. We would do. And if we had 100 people who were donning the same stuff, we'd buy them from the same place, and they would all be the same colour, and they would all be a uniform.
A uniform, like the gangs, the groupings and so on. That aside. But again, would not, a Corps of Engineers, for borrow the U.S. terminology that I'm more familiar with, or a diplomatic corps, if we're talking about diplomacy and disaster response, the Corps of Engineers, would that not have been better, again, than the military component? When we talk about alternatives as opposed to the military approach being the best.
Well, I think the point is very simple. You have a you have a military that has got, in terms of the UK, and we're a Cayman Islands regiment. We draw very much from the UK in terms of their experience and their doctrine and their teaching. If we look at the UK military, as I've just gone through, we have decades of disaster relief experience. Why not utilize that? Why try and reinvent the wheel? We have that, and the same with the vehicles. We don't need to go out and buy brand new vehicles. We can get them from the military that are tried and tested, and we can utilize those vehicles.
Right. If you are I have one last question, but a short break, and as much time as you need after, but just one question. Hey, listen, I hope he doesn't mind. He's a tall, handsome young man. Smile is as disarming as his conversation is engaging. We're trying to Colonel Mr. Simon Watson. After the break, promise you just have one question. We will even try to limit our
No,
supplementaries.
I've got plenty of time. I'm enjoying it, definitely.
Thank you. Let's pause and take that break.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Although very similar to their Grand Cayman counterparts, organized religion in the Sister Islands was spearheaded by the work of Baptist ministers as opposed to Presbyterian missionaries who started the churches nearly 40 years after that in Grand Cayman. In May of 1885, Reverend J.H. Sobey, minister of the Second Baptist Church of Montego Bay, visited Cayman Brac at the invitation of the Brac seamen. During his visit, Reverend Sobey held the first service in a large house, and it was so overcrowded that the following day a tent had to be erected to have the service. In 1886, Reverend Sobey returned to Cayman Brac with Secretary of the Jamaica Baptist Missionary Society, Reverend E.J. Hewitt, in order to introduce Reverend H.W. Rutty as the Brac missionary worker. Congregations started at various settlements with the construction of 2 chapels in Stake Bay and the Creek. The progress would continue, and 6 months later, Reverend Rutty was ordained as a permanent missionary, and more congregations were formed in Westin, Sport Bay on the east end of the island, and South Harbour in Little Cayman. Reverend Rutty's son and grandson would go on to become Cayman Brac's collector and Chief Justice of the Peace.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Freedom, Cayman Brac. Freedom, Little Cayman. Soft breezes, blue waters, no traffic. Unwind and rejuvenate your mind, body, and soul. Sister Island Staycations, a taste of freedom. Discover all that our Sister Islands have to offer.
Busy, busy, busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
This is an important message from the Cayman Islands Needs Assessment Unit for Grand Cayman residents. If you live outside of Georgetown and need NAU assistance, then the NAU in our district program could be for you. This month, the NAU will be providing walk-in services at the East End Civic Center on Friday, August 6th from 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. At the Buddentown Public Library on Friday, August 13th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. and at the West Bay Public Library on Friday, August 20th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Walk-in clients are asked to bring any supporting documentation along with them. For further details, email nauinfo@gov.ky or call 946-0024.
Eat, drink, and save money with BIP. Get the best deals across the islands exclusively with BIP. Introducing BIP Deals and Offers, home to the best money-saving coupons. And that's not all. Join the BIP Marketplace, the best place to buy and sell your items for free. Even better, win free lunch every Wednesday and stand a chance to win great prizes daily with BIP. Just download the free BIP app today and start BIPing.
Cancer sucks. It's unpredictable, and many of us have been affected in some way. To raise awareness, AI Rentals is launching Fet for a Cause, a brand new K-Mass band for 2021. Join us on the road on August 7th, and for just $50, you can play Mass and raise awareness within your community. All proceeds go directly to the Cayman Islands Cancer Society. Sign up at www.carnivalshop.ky or find more information on social media at Fet for a Cause. Show your support, make a difference, and Fet for a Cause this August 7th.
3T Cayman MRI is the patient-friendly MRI experience in the Cayman Islands.
with the most advanced scanner on island, utilizing cutting-edge technology, and a team of highly trained radiologists and technologists with the experience that rivals any clinic in the world. Our suite is designed for patient comfort, with the largest patient opening of any scanner, and additional features to minimize anxiety during your scan. Come to 3T Cayman MRI for your patient-friendly experience. Learn more at 3tkman.com.
Wouldn't it have been grand if you had purchased land 30 years ago? It may not be 2020, but a perfect vision has never been more clear. Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, poised for growth with an eye on the future. Your land, your history, your future. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
Look at you, listening to the radio, tuning in, getting stuff done. Total doer. Maybe you're driving, maybe you're getting your oil changed, or grabbing some chicken. Maybe you're doing something that's nobody's business but yours. Hey, that's cool. We're all doing something. Now you can join a whole new community of doers doing more on findyellow.com. With custom search, local experts, and trusted reviews, whatever you're doing, get it done on findyellow.com.
The Tuesday and Thursday edition of The Business Buzz is brought to you by Cayman Medical Supplies, providing quality pharmaceuticals, medical supplies, and consumer products to healthcare providers, retailers, and ultimately the patients at a reasonable rate in a friendly, caring, and timely manner. Cayman Medical Supplies is located at number 93 Smith Road, Windward Center. Telephone 949-6211.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And again, thanks to Mr. Sam Watson, the commanding officer in the regiment, for his time. Be so amenable and allow me to engage directly with you. And for allowing us to submit some questions yesterday and having an immediate response today.
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you. The final question that we want to ask, and of course we'll defer to you if there are other things you want to share, and like the compliment as we shared through the break. Tell us the makeup of it, how many, as much as you are able to share. Tell us a little bit about it so that we get a perspective that this is what it is.
Absolutely. So our numbers, they obviously fluctuate. We have some people that join, some people that leave, but we're looking about 100 people at the moment. We have that's split down into three parts. We have A squadron and B squadron, and then we have the headquarters element. And all of the men and women in the regiment undergo the same training, regardless of where they are, and that's their sort of basic training in terms of first aid, in terms of rescue, in terms of navigation, in terms of radio communications, and then as we go forward, there's opportunities for them to specialise. So we have in each of those squadrons, they're split down into troops, and in each troop there are a number of teams, and each team is 5 people. So within each team, we have people who are drivers, we have people who are team medics, we have people who have just undergone an air coordination course, so they communicate with the helicopter in terms of bringing that in for a casualty. We have we're going to be training people up to be advanced swimmers, because we obviously recognise that there's times when people need rescuing from water, and basic water rescue is...
So including divers at an extreme level?
Not so much that, no. This is more... basic water rescue is, in effect, the ability to rescue someone in waist high water. That's the first level of training. Anything after that, where you're out of your depth and you're swimming, then that's an advanced. It's moving towards being a sort of a lifeguard, but not to that level. And then we're also going to have fire, for want of a better term, sort of fire liaison officers within each team, and they will be trained up on some of the equipment that the fire use. So when we go to deploy with the fire service, our teams are able to integrate with them in terms of search and rescue or whatever it happens to be.
Okay, so 100 people presently.
Yep.
potentially we have a target where we want to go to?
We had a target before of 175, and that would enable us to have 2 full squadrons of multi-purpose personnel, and then a 3rd squadron of specialists. So motor transport, earth-moving type thing, medics, all that sort of side, and the headquarters element. Realistically, with the way budgets are over the next few years, we all have to recognise that pandemic has cost Cayman, and we all have to trim our budgets accordingly. We will not be looking at reaching that in the next couple of years. We'll be looking at most likely around about 130.
Okay, fair enough. And then you say A squadron and B squadron and then HQ.
Yep.
What's the A squadron? What's the B squadron? What's HQ?
Okay, so they're just different complements of men and women. They do exactly the same thing in the squadrons, but it just enables us to move them to different. So, for instance, if we had a big hurricane that had affected, let's just say it had impacted West Bay and East End, and 2 separate areas. So what we would say is, okay, we need to move A squadron to deal with the flooding and the aid distribution in West Bay, and B squadron would move to East End. But talking about community before, what we actually have is each of the troops within a squadron is if you like, recruited from a local area. So A squadron, 1st troop, comes from West Bay, and so the men and women in that troop are from that area, and there's a reason for that. We've done that.
Familiarity and like.
Exactly. So they know each other. They can get together at the weekend. They're not training and go for a run or go for a beer. They know their local community. The local community knows them, so that when there is an incident and they're dealing with that local community, those people know them.
So that is strikingly different from what we were told some time back with respect to recruiting the police. We can't have our own police on our own because they're familiar.
But that's different. That's because the police have to, in effect, uphold law and order within that community.
But the security component of the regiment is the same thing as well.
Well, the regiment is there primarily, as we said before, as disaster relief. So knowing the environment, knowing the people, knowing who needs help, knowing that Mrs. Jones lives on her own, and has anyone actually checked on her? That's the key thing. And also they become that subject matter. So if West Bay, for instance, needed support. Exactly. If they needed support, then, and we send other troops, then the team based in West Bay can say, okay, this is the scenario, this is the local environment. You have to be aware that this area is highly flooded. Mrs. Jones needs checking on. There's a supermarket over here.
So I sort of seen the reason. We won't, devolve into the policing, but the same reason why many in the community thought that the policing should come from the community, just like what you argue. But highlights my personal argument as I champion it based on the men who have offered it, why the CERT works as effective, if not more so. They know the community. You're dragging your squadrons from the community.
No, to be perfectly honest with you, I think the CERTs are a fantastic tool, and we, as I say, we work alongside them, absolutely. But it's to do different tasks.
Okay. And with that, then, as we look at it, the component and the thing, we know the numbers you divide up into it, and the complement. Who is in the regiment? Is it, Caymanians? Who's in the regiment?
Absolutely. So
all Caymanians?
No. So to join the regiment, you either have to be Caymanian or you have to be a PR holder.
Okay.
So that's where we are. There are a couple of exceptions. I myself am one. I've been here 8 years, so not quite PR. But because of my military background and because of my experience, there was an exception made.
Are there other exceptions? I mean, so then in essence, so I'd be very clear. You're employed with the government, in a sense. Just want to make sure, right? Yeah. So, is there? And I don't want to name if there is. Just want to respectfully the most honest answer that you're allowed to give. Is there anybody in the regiment who is on a work permit in any capacity?
No.
So nobody, all PR or Caymanians?
We have, obviously, you've got people who, there are no work permit holders in the regiment, but then there's no work permit holders in government.
So if anybody who is in the regiment, and I don't want to be, anyway, I just want to understand, if there's anybody who is in the regiment who is working for government, separate and apart, we wouldn't consider them because they work for government. There is no laws don't apply to government. So anybody, is there anyone 2, 10, 1,000 within the regiment training or any part in any capacity who is and would be subject to a work permit, who is not PR, who is not Caymanian?
Yeah, me.
No, other than you.
Other than me.
Other than you. I don't want to know name, how age, where they're from, what color they are, whether they're my friend or your friend.
I think there's one other But I believe because no, because it's the government. So no, so it's just me.
So no.
There you go.
Like, hold you to that, you know.
Well, yes, I'm the only one who's on a work permit.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
The only reason I'm asking, because many have, as you've heard it, as I've heard it, and so, and I was very specific, not disrespectful, intended if it was my apology. But you said, and I'm going to repeat it so I didn't misunderstand. Other than those who may be employed with the government, other than you, they're all PR holders or Caymanians, however that's defined by law, generation, or whichever.
Exactly.
So everybody else is, whether they're training and trying to get there, whether they have been...
Well, no, I mean, we don't have anyone trained. They're all in regiment, yeah. But I think it's I mean, we need to be very clear that that's what the law says.
Right.
And it's been written for that reason. It's Caymanians and PR holders. And that is what we want to have in the regiment.
Right.
And in the whole point is that the regiment is there to serve Cayman. So having that mixture of Caymanians and PR holders is great.
All one and the same.
Because all one exactly that.
Right.
Yeah. And it means that you have shown that you're committed to Cayman, and you've shown that you're going to be here and stay here.
I'm not inferring that there is or isn't. I just really want to ask that question because it was impressed upon me, and I thought, well, the law says that. I read the law. Did you not believe it? And the lady said, trust but verify. You said, I say that all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm like, huh?
Oh,
so
they think no. The law is very clear.
I've read it, and that's what it says. So
Yeah.
I just really wanted to ask it as clearly as I could to elicit as direct a response. So thank you.
And don't get me wrong. I mean, there may well be instances going forward. We have fantastic, Caymanian young officers. For instance, we have a great group of young officers who are Caymanians, but they're going to need leadership, senior leadership as we move forward. Our intent in the future is to have as much as possible the entire senior management of the Cayman Regiment as Caymanians. But to get us there, we need to have senior officers who are bringing them through. Right. So, for instance, we there may well be instances in the future that we bring in people who are work permit holders in their main job, but they're reservists.
Right.
But they're reservists because we want to take their experience, use that experience, and use that to help better our Caymanian officers coming through.
Fair enough. That's in the future. We respectfully want to ask about what obtains, as Mr. Tibbetts used to talk about what obtains now.
Yeah, absolutely now. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Can we ask a supplementary or
sure,
two parts?
Of course,
and then
yeah, definitely.
I want to read it so that it's clear. So what is the regiment's rules of engagement in regards to the use of lethal force? Part A. Let's ask that first.
Okay, first things first, we do not have any weapon systems in Cayman. So currently, we do not have the ability to use weapon systems. However, I will give you, and this is not verbatim.
No. Yes, sir.
This is from me. Our rules of engagement would be you're only allowed to discharge your weapon at an aimed target if you believe that target is posing a direct and immediate risk to your life or the life of somebody else.
So, all right, I won't say that. That'd be inflammatory. Let's leave that. Think about the U.S. situation. Let's ask.
It's complete. So it is very the British Army's rules of engagement are basically exactly the same. It is you can't. The only time you can do it is to stop someone who is about to kill you or somebody else.
So let's ask it this way and ask this one. Final one. Is the regiment under the same use of force policy as the police, and will they be applying for a change?
As in, right. Well, first things first. Any deployment that we did with weapons, and I have to stress, this is so highly unlikely, but it's worth talking about.
But it's probable.
Absolutely, no, it's not probable. It's not probable in the slightest. It is
fork and a plate can eat.
It is. So. It is highly unlikely, but we will still cover it because it is a possibility. So, any time that we were deployed, we would deploy with the police, and we would come under. This is in Cayman. We would come under their organizational structure.
That's not comforting you.
Okay. From a senior control perspective, the police are law and order within Cayman. So our rules of engagement are very clear. The only time we would ever discharge a weapon is if that person was about to kill or harm another person.
Again, maybe it's being from West Bay or a Caymanian. Let me ask the question so I can hear the answer.
Yeah.
Is the regiment under the same use of force policy as the police, and will they be applying for a change? Yes or no?
I am not clear of the police's rule of force policy, so I wouldn't be able to comment on that.
Fair enough.
And obviously, once we get weapons, it does not mean we're going to be able to deploy the weapons for a long time. We have to be able to have the equipment that goes with it. For instance, protective equipment, protective vests. We have to go through range training. We have to do weapons training, range training, judgmental training. So there is a huge amount of training. I mean, we train, in effect, never to use our weapons. But the fact is that if we are to use weapons, there is a huge amount of training that goes on before that. So don't expect us to...
Well, if it's okay, that last question, could we ask maybe you look at that and give us a written response
Yeah,
at some
certainly.
point? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll ask it after so we get it. I can forward it to you.
Yeah.
With that training, all the physical and all that stuff, we were told that the psychometric testing was used in the recruitment of the deputy governor, in senior civil servants, in the, what they call them, chief officers, permanent secretaries.
Yeah.
Does that come into play when we're training the regiment? Any sort of, I call it psychological profiling or whatever it is we do, is that happening? Will that happen if it isn't?
We have, I'm trying to think back to the testing we did. We did a number of sort of verbal reasoning type testing, English, maths. I can't confirm if we did psychometric
Would that
testing
be one
or
as
not.
well? You check, make a note, please. Yeah.
I can check if we have
Please.
used it. Yeah, absolutely. Whether it would be or not, obviously you're talking about the deputy governor.
No, sorry. What I was saying, that we understand, as an example, when we were recruiting for senior positions, including, as we understand from media reports way back when, senior positions, including deputy governor, chief officers, and then there was a series of different profiles and testing examinations that were utilized, including psychometric testing.
Yeah.
Has something like that been also used when we were looking at recruiting members of the regiment, just to check them out?
I mean, we can, to be perfectly honest with you, anything that you're using for a sort of deputy governor, head of the civil service, is not necessarily going to be relevant to to a trooper.
Right, but
I mean, I know he did a battery of different tests. I don't think, but I'll get back to you.
I mean, inference for those who can't is obvious, but we'll ask you. And then on a very perhaps almost innocuous comment.
No, Sterling, they're never innocuous at the last question.
No, it is. I promise you. A number of members in our community, I should have actually took it, but asked if the regiment or the command's government or the UK's Ministry of Defence could source similar, these great deals for local farmers and heavy equipment operators, similar to what we saw the good cooperation and assistance following Hurricane Ivan. So we know that the government is looking at farming and food security. We see the cost of acquiring that equipment. And so the things that they've acquired for this military purpose, is it also possible that they could also source similar equipment to help our farmers and our local heavy equipment operators to leverage that buying power, leverage that ability to source similar equipment that would assist in that capacity? So it was an innocent question.
It's a very interesting question. I mean, obviously, we've got our vehicles that are ex-military vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
The military, unfortunately, doesn't have a lot of sort of agricultural equipment.
Right.
There are definitely suppliers out there with agricultural equipment, but again, it's if you're buying used equipment, you have to make sure that it is.
So I guess the question was, through the regiment, the government, the UK military, being able to leverage that network, that resource, and to get farming equipment, heavy equipment for the farmers and the heavy equipment operators.
I mean, I think it would be something that it could be put to the Department of Agriculture. I think that's something that they could definitely look at. I think if we're talking about wanting to benefit farmers, they're probably the best people to be able to advise on that.
Fair enough.
As I say, if our truck supplier also supply tractors, then I could definitely put them in the right tempo. But unfortunately, they don't.
We promise that we will ask any
question.
No,
definitely.
Thank you for being so amenable to answering all. The invitation stands for you or anyone else to come in and speak to it as best as possible. Wherever we say or do something that you feel needs clarifying, correcting, or addressing, let us know. And we would like you to take a second or 10 minutes if you want. Any final comments you wish to use?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you. I mean, I know this is a very emotive subject for a lot of people.
So. Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of that is down to the fact that people aren't aware of what we're here for, the regiment. And, people are concerned that, we are out there to provide riot control or whatever it happens to be. And that's simply not the case. We are here primarily to provide disaster relief, but also security for Cayman. And that is a good thing. That is a good thing for Cayman. It is there to support the men and women of Cayman in times of emergency. But there's a lot more to that. We've talked about it before. We've got so many great men and women that are doing fantastic jobs in their lives and also volunteering their time to support the regiment and benefiting their character and their leadership and their development going through. And there's a lot that we can provide to the community going forward over the years. I'm always happy to come on, Sterling. Thank you so much, because I think it's important that if people have got questions, they can ask these questions and ask them, anonymously. They can write in, they can call in. We can put that list together, and then we can talk about it. And you and I can have that open and honest discussion about what it is.
Right. Well, I thank you for that. I thank those who sent through their things. I thank the two individuals in particular who helped me to sift through the questions and try to put them in some semblance. I appreciate the governor's office for receiving them, and then for you to coming on today. And hopefully the dialogue continues. Hopefully we get the space and a place where there's civility in the society. We look more for diplomacy and the other things that are transpiring. And when we're offended, just ask ourselves, are we that thin-skinned, or are we that, obstinate, or are we actually that productive? Mr. Watson, enjoy the rest of the week. Thank you for your time, sir.
Sterling, thank you so much. Have a great day.
Okay, we're going to pause and take a break. And when we come back, we want to say a special thanks to HSA for yielding some of their time. And when we come back, we'll have a chat about breastfeeding. What a way to transition. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
You see how hard it's raining?
Yeah, and I don't have time to fight traffic and get my lunch from Subway. I have so much work to do.
Why don't you order Subway by using the Let's Eat or Bento app? Save time, stay dry, and get your sandwich fast.
I never thought of that. Great idea. I'm going to order now.
Order me a veggie pizza while you're at it.
And a cookie platter for the office.
Too busy at work or home? Is the rainy weather stopping you from dining out? Order your favorite Subway sandwich, wrap, or pizza through the Let's Eat or Bento app with fast and reliable delivery. Subway. Eat fresh.
Dreaming of a great career or degree? The Caribbean Examinations Council offers regionally and internationally recognized qualifications to help you get there. These include the Caribbean Certificate of Secondary Level Competence, CCSLC, the Caribbean Secondary Education Certificate, CSEC, the Caribbean Vocational Qualification, CVQ, Caribbean Advanced Proficiency Examination, CAPE, and the CXC Associate Degree. These exams may be done while in school or out of school at private learning institutions. Visit cxc.org to learn more. With CXC, you're in control.
Cancer sucks. It's unpredictable, and many of us have been affected in some way. To raise awareness, AI Rentals is launching Fet for a Cause, a brand new K-Mass band for 2021. Join us on the road on August 7th, and for just $50, you can play Mass and raise awareness within your community. All proceeds go directly to the Cayman Islands Cancer Society. Sign up at www.carnivalshop.ky or find more information on social media at Fet for a Cause. Show your support, make a difference, and Fet for a Cause this August 7th.
The Department of Education Services and the Public Health Department would like to inform parents that health screening for new students will take place during the summer until August 23rd across Grand Cayman schools. The Public Health Department will be visiting your district schools and will be contacting you regarding school health screening appointment. Health screenings will also continue during September and October for those children who are not screened during the summer. Roma United Sports Club and JN Money presents the official Jamaican Independence Celebration and Health Fair on Friday, August 6th at the Lions Center, featuring local and international acts, kids talent contest, dancing contest, and best dress contest. Lots of prizes and giveaways, plus the good Jamaican food, music by Slaughter Rich, The Entertainer, and DJ Marcus. Health Fair from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Free PSA test. Free blood pressure and diabetes checks. Don't miss it. The Jamaica Independence Celebration and Health Fair on Friday, August 6th at the Lions Center. COVID protocol in effect. Come out early. Sponsored by Cayman Art Discount, Best Dress, Papa, Cayman Hair and Beauty Supply, People's Choice Grocery, Vibe Time, Radio Cayman, and Breeze FM.
For the record. for information that matters to you, the people. Hear from the government, the opposition, independents, and other experts on issues and solutions that affect you. For the record, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, tune into 89.9 and 93.9 FM for Cayman's Straight Talk Morning Show. For the record,
I invite you to join me for the record. You are invited to be a part of this interesting and informative show. Embrace the opportunity to dialogue with your legislators, policymakers, and those charged with policy implementation.
For the record,
Brought to you by
Coca-Cola, available across the Cayman Islands from Tortuga Distributors.
Accept no substitutes. Taste the feeling with Coca-Cola.
Satisfaction is guaranteed 24 hours a day, whether it's music or information.
From Grand Cayman to Cayman Brac to Little Cayman, we've got you covered.
You ever hear a thing like that?
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
With your latest headlines, I'm Felicia Rankin-Zollins. Local charitable organization Big Brothers Big Sisters held their first annual Youth Mentoring Forum this past Saturday, July 31st, hosted at the Cayman International School. The forum's theme, How Important Are Mentors in Helping Caymanian Children and Adolescents Overcome the Difficulties Experienced During the Pandemic and Build Resilience in a Post-COVID World, provided the opportunity to highlight the need for mentors and mental health support for children and adolescents in the Cayman Islands. In international news, a black man in the U.S. state of Indiana, Vox Booker, told reporters that he had been charged in his own attempted lynching. Mr. Booker said white men had threatened to get a noose while attacking him at a gathering in July 2020. Partial video of the incident was widely shared on social media, and 2 men were later charged with assault. But a year after the event, prosecutors in Monroe County have now also charged Mr. Booker, a civil rights activist, with felony assault and misdemeanor trespassing over the same incident. An investigation into New York Governor Andrew Cuomo has found that he sexually harassed several women, including employees at his office. Announcing the results of the inquiry, New York Attorney General Letitia James said Mr. Cuomo had violated state and federal laws. A pensioner in Germany has been convicted of illegal weapons possession after he was found to own an extensive personal arsenal, including a tank. The defendant, who's 84, has been handed a suspended prison sentence of 14 months and has been ordered to pay a fine of 250,000 euros. These are your headlines. I'm Felicia Rankin-Zollins. For the latest in news and information,
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon, welcome back, and thanks again. And if I might, as we get into our next discussion, again, say a special thanks to Mr. Simon Watson, the commanding officer for the regiment, for coming in and sharing, and for all of you who submitted questions. And if there's anything that I can say is, as long as we're responsible and respectful and respected and respectable, then we can make, civilized commentators, ensure our society remains safe and stable and secure. I say that to quickly recognize and show appreciation for the wonderful folks at the Health Services Authority who join us from time to time to appreciate. And as we sort of talk about World Breastfeeding Week, Ms. Simone Sheehan, our nutritionist, I said dietitian, I don't know if there's a difference.
Yeah, either or.
Either or?
They're both good.
They're both good?
Yeah.
Okay, I like food, so they're both good. She joins us, and, if I could, maybe for my benefit and edification, okay, I was hearing some music in the back, and I was wondering if it's all gone now. Would you, Ms. Simone, sort of introduce yourselves, and then Nurse Deepa, perhaps you as well, and then Ms. Dixon, just a quick intro as to who we are. Would that be fine?
Of course. So my name is Simone. I'm a dietitian, and I work at the HSA, and I've worked there a good few years now. I don't really want to put the number on it, but it's been a while.
More than one.
More than one. And every year August comes around and it's World Breastfeeding Week. So it really gives us a great opportunity to bring the subject of breastfeeding back up to the important place in the conversation where it needs to be.
Thank you for that. And we'll get into some questions, but Nurse Deepa, if you would, maybe a brief introduction, if you would, ma'am. And good afternoon. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me in. My name is Deepa. I work in critical care unit in HSA. And
Okay, thanks. And Ms. Dixon?
Okay, my name is Cheverly Dixon. I also work in the critical care unit as their secretary.
Okay, I put down business coordinator. Sounds much better.
Same thing.
No, that's good. She's amazing over there. And thank you both for accepting, the invitation and coming in, and hope for the truth discussion with Simone that we can get people to appreciate the importance of, what we're doing. What is World Breastfeeding Week? Maybe start with that question first.
Okay, so every first week of August, there is this celebration of breastfeeding. Each year the theme varies, but the main components are to inform, to anchor, to engage, and to galvanize the important approaches towards promoting breastfeeding and how to push that forward. Using a variety of different ways. Obviously, we always have to support the individual person, the mom who is breastfeeding, but obviously targeting the whole community, whether it's health sector, education, government, just really trying to do what we need to do to get breastfeeding out there as elevating it to the important status that it deserves.
Yeah. Someone's asking how old is too old to be breastfed, but we'll come back to that. I appreciate our listeners, and sometimes just a little laughter lightens the mood and makes the conversation and information flow that much more easily. And when I first heard about the World Alliance for Breastfeeding Week action, I thought, but we know it. I thought it was a boxing club. You referenced the theme. What is the theme for this year?
So the theme for this year is Protect Breastfeeding, a Shared Responsibility. So it is sort of encouraging governments and health workers and educators and family members and community members to engage and discuss breastfeeding, come to terms with sort of what as a community we need to do to improve the experience of breastfeeding for mums, because sometimes even still, while breastfeeding we know is an amazing gift for babies, it's still often viewed in public when a mum is trying to nurse as something that's, you need to do that somewhere else, and without really realising how significantly important it is for mum's health, but most importantly for baby's health.
I can imagine that as the partner who is not breastfeeding, or as the extended family member, that support is good, but we need, as Simone said, appreciate, I don't want to say the sacrifice, but the importance. I mean, to me it's a sacrifice, but you guys can tell me differently. The commitment, the love, that level of love, discipline. So as mothers, could we invite you to share as you wish and help us to appreciate it, as I think is absolutely fundamental to health of both mom and babe. But Ms. Dixon, Ms. Deepa, as you wish, who wishes to go first? The breastfeeding mother, who's also the working mother, who may just,
Right. Breastfeeding is a wonderful feeling. I mean, if I can feed my baby, that is just excellent for me to be able to do that for my child. And I think it would be one of the greatest gifts that I can give to my baby as a mother, because as she's starting her life, I think if she's healthy and growing well, I think that's the best. And I would really love to do it.
Yes.
More, than I have been able to do it. But
I guess. Ms. Dixon?
For me, it actually also, it gives them nourishment, but that intimacy that you have with your baby, that connection that you get when breastfeeding is magnificent. Like, there's no way to explain how the love just comes out of you once you just looking down at your baby and you're breastfeeding. It just feels overwhelming.
So a strong bond.
Absolutely.
That's the emotional, psychological, but we know the health benefits of what the child gets.
Yeah.
And we've seen children go from a little twig to immediately overnight this bouncing joy.
Plump baby.
Plump, I like the word. Because all of a sudden they've latched on and they're getting the nourishment. So it's good stuff.
It's correct. Yeah.
All right. But there are sadly challenges, perhaps even in Cayman, but let's speak to the Cayman context. Access in spaces, being safe that is, can help and so on. So what are some ways that in the Cayman context that we can do to help support, the breastfeeding mother?
Well, to speak in the work environment, because we know we only here get 6 weeks. For most companies, I believe, is 6 weeks fully paid maternity leave. It's 3 months, but
half and half, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. So, for some, for example, I'll speak to my truth. I unfortunately can't do that unpaid leave.
Mm-hmm.
So you can request certain ways to try to go about that. You can try to do half monthly, like working half days or something like that. So I had to go back to work early. And when it comes to breastfeeding, since I won't be able to do that, basically, I have to think about still giving the nourishment. So I pump, right?
Wow.
And not having a space, a quiet space for you to be comfortable enough to pump is a big issue for any mom, because if you're stressed out or you're constantly worrying, oh my gosh, somebody's going to come through the door, oh my gosh, I can't.
And you're rushed as well.
You're rushed, exactly. So that does not help your milk supply in any way. It does take a toll on your milk supply.
I'm glad you shared that, and thank you for being so candid. But I think sometimes we, all of us, male and female, maybe men more, but I won't try to be offensive too much in that respect. We don't appreciate what happens. So not just the financial considerations of that working mother who needs that income in order to help to support, but we could also offer up other support.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get to a space where that's important. Nurse Deepa?
Yeah, so it is very, very, very important. That support that comes from the workplace is something every mother, a working mother, look for. And you really need that kind of support, because it's already hard on the mother who is feeding the child. I mean, she's already going through so much, and then if you are not able to get that kind of a support, it takes a toll on her. And then you have so many mothers who go into depression. They don't want to feed the child anymore because they just think it is hard, and then they can't feed the child in public because they think it's embarrassing, because the way the public would look at you and the way they eye you,
it's not embraced. Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, when we look at that, and we see with anything a level of assistance, counseling, and the like, that would help guide, nurture, inform, that people know what is available. I can imagine our mothers and our working mothers, but our mothers just generally, sometimes that assistance. So is there a way they can access that? Like, share with us.
Well, I think even when you're pregnant, it's important to have conversations with your employers, engage in conversations even with your partner, your friends or family, if you're lucky enough to have family around you, to discuss practical ways that you can be helped. Like in these two ladies' cases, they both have other children under the age of 5 and 6, 2 other in one case and 1 in the other, and they don't necessarily live close to town. So there's a lot of just actual practicalities about
logistics,
pumping, and having even just something simple like where to store it at work, and feeling at work that you can do that without other colleagues or other people commenting or judging you. We do have an excellent breastfeeding support group in the Cayman Islands of volunteers who are lactation consultants and very expert. We do have, obviously, all the midwives at Georgetown Hospital for sure are all very competent and able to assist with breastfeeding. Our public health nurses are also very competent and offer a lot of support and do home visits if needed after a baby's born. So there is support out there, but I suppose it still can feel like kind of an isolating feeling when you're on your own just feeding the baby and you're trying your best for it to be easier, but it just isn't always.
Yeah. I can imagine that just as Ms. Dixon shared, you'd prefer to, like sort of farm to table, give it right then and there,
Yeah.
From the sea, to the plate.
Gotcha.
Fine. But we're not there. Is it that, are there certain common challenges, I don't want to say problems, but that mothers may experience, and if they are, what sort of potential solutions, advice do you have to help them? I mean, I've never breastfeed, I don't know, whatever. I tried, it didn't work.
Right, if we could have a proper breastfeeding area, that is exclusively for breastfeeding, and you can be at peace when you are there. Like, you are sure that you are, I'm not safe is not the word, as in
comfortable,
and nobody's going to just
privacy
dash
and
you need somewhere like that to be, and not just in the workplace, like
in general
everywhere, as in like places like Kamanapig, if I can be specific. I mean, they have a room for everything, but where do a lactating mother go if she wants to breastfeed a child?
Shouldn't have to go into the bathroom or borrow someone's office or in a broom closet or what have you.
Right. Exactly.
But
or
even
go sit in your car.
Or go sit in your car. I mean, really? How many of us have had lunch in a car? We're glad that we had lunch in the car to sit in, but it's not what we would prefer.
And it's not comfortable for a mom.
I can imagine. Wow.
Yeah.
Just, and I think this is where, as we start to advance as a society, we start to appreciate that so much transpires. And this is why our mothers in particular, the women in general, but our mothers in particular, they're heroes, man.
The thing is, we do have places everywhere wherein you can change diapers for the baby. But they don't think about, the mothers need to feed the baby too. It's not only changing diapers.
Yeah.
So we have places for that, but if we could also...
I remember when I first encountered, not in Cayman, I call it a bathroom, where you, as the dad, go into the space.
And you can actually change your...
Yes.
Because I don't think there's anywhere in Cayman that males can actually go to the bathroom and change their children. It's always the mother.
Yeah.
It's always in the female bathroom that you have a diaper changing bed thingy for.
I am reliably informed that has recently changed with one of our supermarkets. That there's a space there. There may be more.
That's good.
But, you don't want to take your child into the space where everybody is. If you can go into this space where the facility is there, and whether you're the mom or the dad or it's both of you. And you as a father saying, "Mommy, this is how you change the diaper." No, just kidding. It's usually the other way around. Right. But we do double check. Do we need to take a break, sir? Or are we good? Okay. We're going to take a break. But when we come back, could we ask about some of the issues? I referenced, latching on, and people going, but what is he talking about? I've heard the term. Maybe you need to tell me what it is and what it means, and if there is such an issue. When we come back?
All right.
Please stay tuned and rejoin us after the break.
Busy, busy, busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
Explore your history. Explore your land. Explore your sister islands, the ultimate staycation experience. Your culture, your freedom, the land that time forgot isn't gone. It's your sister islands.
Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
The HSA Specialist Clinic has relocated to a new, modern, state-of-the-art facility at Smith Road Center to offer you a better patient experience. Receive care from top specialists in chiropractic, complementary and alternative medicine, neurology, ENT, urology, pain management, and more. Our orthopedic and telemedicine clinics remain at the Cayman Islands Hospital campus. Please remember to bring your own face mask when visiting any HSA location. Visit our website, hsa.ky, to learn more. At the HSA, you matter to us.
Your Radio Cayman 6 p.m. news, Monday through Friday, is brought to you by Logic. Your life connected.
Do you know that conditions may change suddenly in an emergency and you may have to leave at a moment's notice? When a hurricane threatens, you should have a grab-and-go survival kit. This kit should include your personal identification and other vital documents, which should be sealed in a watertight pouch or container. For more tips and information, visit the Hazard Management Cayman Islands office or caymanprepared.ky. This hurricane tip is brought to you by Hazard Management Cayman Islands and Radio Cayman 89.9 FM.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks so much for joining us as we talk about World Breastfeeding Week. We have nutritionist slash dietitian, not quite sure which is which, from the HSA, Ms. Simone Sheehan, and joining us, if I can, two of our wonderful, courageous mothers who have continued to persevere despite to still be with their children and nurse them in such a healthy way. The CCU nurse, Deepa Arampur, together with the business coordinator, Sherilyn Dixon. Ladies, thanks. And as other expectant mothers on board or future mothers appreciate, they too should be encouraged continue this. If I then, as we look at it, we were talking just before the break, and of course, join us. Everything has sometimes a bit of a little battle, and we know about latching. Well, maybe let's ask what is it, and is it an issue, and what do you do to fix it if there is, and the like.
Well, latching is where your baby basically starts to suck on your nipple, if I can say that.
Go right ahead. Hey, listen, if we can say chocolate cake on the air, we can say that.
Okay. And sometimes they don't basically grab onto it properly, so it does end up hurting you as a mom because it's extremely painful.
I can imagine.
If they continue trying to get this milk out, but they're not sucking on it properly.
Kind of like if you got a thick milkshake and you're trying to
slurp
not
it.
The same thing,
Yeah.
but you get your head hurt.
Yeah, well,
okay.
you
must be worse.
It's a lot worse. It gets sore to the point where it can bleed. I will preach this till the end of the earth. There's this cream called lanolin cream. It is a miracle cream because I don't know, and it's safe for breastfeeding. Like you can literally rub that on and start breastfeeding again.
Yeah, one older lady told me coconut oil, but then she says that's for everything.
So
okay,
there's that.
All right, thanks. Wow, can you imagine then? I leave it to you, nurse. I'm just thinking the consequences of the discomfort for the mother, but potentially the impact on not being able to continue even if you want to, because how many people have...
And it's discouraging for a new mom specifically that doesn't have the support or doesn't know about it, and you're like, oh my gosh, what is this? I'm bleeding. Like, I can't give this to my baby. So it is a bit scary for a new mom to end up going through that and not knowing what to do about it.
So
I was just going to add, I think it is one of the myths out there about breastfeeding is that once the baby's born, they automatically know what to do. They do know how to suck and they do know they're hungry, but they need a bit of guidance, and sometimes mums need that too, which is why that time in hospital is so valuable, because you can be observed feeding and techniques can be improved to enhance the latching experience for the baby. And then breastfeeding is not painful. Once that initial latch happens, it shouldn't be painful. If it's painful, something's not quite as it should be.
Correct. Because I am a nurse and I should know how to breastfeed, right? That is how it is. You're a nurse, you should know everything.
That's right.
Right? But when I had my baby, I still needed the midwife. My midwife was such a wonderful person. She did help me because I found out I didn't know how to do it. And then she had to tell me. So it's not the nipple alone. So the baby needs to be taught how to grab the alveoli, the brown portion around the nipple. That's where he needs to grab, and that's how he needs to suck. So if you're getting a cracked nipple, that's because maybe your baby's not latching you properly, unless you have an infection. But usually it's because your baby's not latching properly. If he's just sucking on your nipple, it will give you a crack. And because the baby is not getting enough milk, so he's going to suck harder and harder. And
it's like a suction cup. Just think of a suction cup. It just grabs it.
Right. And to your earlier comment, Ms. Dixon, even now, I've had this conversation for World Breastfeeding Week for many years, and all of us are a little bit reserved, polite, in even having this conversation. Even me, I feel a little bit sometimes. But yet we can talk about almost anything else. And yet here is literally the life, health, and benefits for mom and babe, and we're a bit polite. Can I say that? Should we say that? Hey, listen, this is life, and it's life abundantly, right?
Yeah.
Well, as long as a new mom can be empowered and feeling confident in what she's doing, baby's happy, then it does enhance the breastfeeding, experience so much more.
Yeah.
Well, I can quickly harken back to that sort of time period, how long the nursing mother Is that the right way to put it? The nursing mother?
Yeah,
breastfeeding
yeah.
mother? Okay.
Nursing and breastfeeding are often interchangeable.
So
Yeah.
show my age now.
Exclusive breastfeeding is recommended for the first 6 months of life. By exclusive breastfeeding, that means no additional water or supplementary feeding, so no formula. As it happens, this year is actually the 40-year anniversary of the International Code for Marketing for breast milk substitutes. So 40 years ago, in the early 90s, or was that 80s if I'm doing my math properly?
Probably 80s, but
80s, thank you. So this code was developed because these formula companies were so aggressive in targeting mothers to buy their formula that breastfeeding rates reduced dramatically. So this code was introduced to try and control and the behaviour of these breast milk alternative formulas, to try and get them to prevent targeting mums, giving them free things, free diapers and things like that, as well as formula, because it was basically stopping the breastfeeding from being successful. And then they noticed that child morbidity and mortality rates were starting to go up because breastfeeding rates were going down. So it's actually the 40th year anniversary of that actual code being written and coming into effect. So it's an extra thing to celebrate that after 40 years, that this is still very alive and well and very much part of policy making when it comes to organisations and people like the World Health Organization, the UNICEF, when they, want to come up with ways or policies to promote the whole breastfeeding issues, then referencing the code is a very common thing to happen.
Well, and I would ask you to guide me, not just as a father, but as a, as a male member of society, that we encourage, the mothers in our communities, that we try to be sensible and sensitive and receptive and responsible and accommodate in every which way. Not because it's politically correct, but because it's, from what I gather, healthy. I look at the economic benefits as well. I mean, this is portable stuff that you can carry, and formula is expensive.
Very expensive.
Hospitalization is even more so. So if we have this thing, but it's the benefit to mom and babe. And so to be aware of a World Alliance for Breastfeeding Action, it shows how important it is to have that. And I'm hopeful as employers, as colleagues, as extended family, and even the siblings of that mother, but the other children, that we find a way to make this as natural and as commonplace. We've had a number of mothers on over the years, and they've relayed stories. And although she's never been in a studio, she tells of a time when she was out to dinner. Child was over 6 months, but she was still breastfeeding, and without any prompting, a couple of the members of the staff, including a male member, had come over and say, if you must have realized it, need to breastfeed. We don't have a room, but we've created a little space, and they had a curtain, and she could go in there and say, you could take as much time. They brought her food if she wanted, this stuff.
That's so nice. That's
and this was in Cayman. I thought, wow. And to see that level, I thought, people who get it, but that level of customer service, of sensibleness, and that's where I want us to be. And like Nurse Deepa shared, maybe we can devote spaces without any sort of expectation and promotion and publicity and expecting something in return. So
and I think things in some respects are changing. I mean, the Government Administration Building has a dedicated breastfeeding room. Other private companies, I know for one, for example, up the road here, Walkers, they have a dedicated breastfeeding room. The Family Support Centre, Resource Centre, they have dedicated rooms for breastfeeding and pumping. So, things are there, but not everybody knows.
But it doesn't say breastfeeding room. It says another word. One guy said, he made a joke and said, he looked at it and go, it doesn't say breastfeeding. It says, lactating. What is that in this case?
Yeah.
There's a room.
Well, it can be confusing, I suppose, but lactation room is a breastfeeding room. A more maybe technical way to say the same thing.
That's what it means. My friends going to go, really? You're talking to school? No, but as we get into the discussion, what could you share with, mothers, but also maybe they're supported sort of casts, whether it's the spouse or partner, or whether it's are there things that we can do, but as mothers in particular, who are like you, who want to do it for whatever reason, is there anything that you can share that would help us to be more courageous, be more convinced, and be more assertive necessarily to do it and to stick with it?
What the society needs to remember is breast milk comes with no expense. So it's cheap. right? No expense at all. Easy storage. You don't need to carry formula. You need to carry a different a whole bag, you know. when we go out, it's a whole big bag that we have to carry with bottles and formulas and water and whatnot. So if you're breastfeeding, you can just be free, I guess, because it's there, it's right there. And if you have places around where you know if you're going at a certain place and there would be a place where you can breastfeed freely, I mean, it is such an encouragement for people to go around and start breastfeeding. What I think is what we all must remember is animals, if I can mention. They don't use formulas. They just breastfeed their kids and they're always healthy. I mean, and that's how humans were in the beginning. And I think we had our generations, if we look, our forefathers were much healthier than we were than now. So
that's a good point. I mean, think of some of the larger mammals. And I'm not going to try to pretend I know animal biology, but as heavy as I may be, I'm kind of still small compared to some of those mammals, and that's, I guess they breastfeed, right? That's how they get their stuff, and they grow to be healthy and strong. And that's, I mean, they don't go into the supermarket and buy formula.
That's how we were made, and I guess that needs to be protected, and that's the right way.
But in addition, though, to the economic sense of breastfeeding and the convenience, because the shop's always open 24/7 and you don't ever have to worry. But the major health benefits are immeasurable. The transfer of the immunological components from the breast milk means that your child will have lower risk of gastrointestinal infections, ear infections, gut infections, less allergies, and even later in life, less risk of obesity, diabetes. These have been shown to be real, genuine benefits from breastfeeding from birth.
And to add to that, for example, if I get sick, I have the flu, whatever antibodies that my body is creating to help fight that, I'm literally passing that down to my baby.
So you have a healthy immune system in your baby?
The baby gets a healthy immune system, so it helps their immune system to be stronger as well, because they're getting what I'm getting.
All right. Well, we have two other questions from our listeners that we can ask in terms of the benefits in breastfeeding. And this one asks, that's powerful. You know, how do you know when to breastfeed, and then for how long? I not just the 6 months, 12 months, but you know,
like time.
So for me, for example, when to breastfeed is whenever your baby wants it.
For as much as 1 minute wants.
Whenever she wants. Your baby will come off when she's ready or he's ready.
Might have been a little greedy one like me all the time.
Well, for example, my daughter, she goes to daycare because I had to go back to work. So she literally comes, once I pick her up and I get home, she's literally there until she goes to bed at 8.
So she knows what she wants, when she wants, and how much she wants.
Yep. And
smart
then,
babies are smart.
And for example, as to how
breast
long
milk makes them smart.
Yeah.
True. Yes.
And as for example, as to how long you, my first baby, I breastfed for a year, and it's only because I got pregnant. He basically told me, "No, mommy, that's for the baby."
Oh.
So that was that. My second child, I breastfed for 3 years.
Okay.
So it all depends on when you want to stop.
Right. So what about the duration? You know, is it a 5-minute interval, or is the child there all the time, constantly? You know.
It can be different experiences for different mums, but generally speaking, the approach is empty one breast before you move on to a second breast. Correct. Babies can clean you out in less than 10 minutes, or some babies fall asleep while they're feeding, and then as soon as they come off, they want to go back on again. You can have something called cluster feeding, where you feel like you just fed the baby and all of a sudden the baby's back on again. But generally speaking, as long as there's 20 minutes between a feed, more milk will have formed and baby will be ready to be fed again. But of course, it's also important to empty one breast because they're going to get the foremilk and the hind milk, which is the filling part, where if the baby's just getting the milk at the beginning of at the first milk that comes out when they first latch on, that's the foremilk. That's a bit watery, and it definitely quenches the thirst, but it isn't going to fill them up for long.
So they'll want to consistently try it again.
Forgive me, I've not done this, and if this is the inappropriate bit, my apology. But empty one and go in the other. If I'm dispensing water from a can, I know when it's empty.
How do you know when your boob is
women
empty?
probably know this, and if it's not appropriate to answer, don't. But
Well, the mothers would know.
You know, okay.
Yeah,
so you know.
Okay.
Okay.
When the breast is empty, they would usually know it. You get that feeling.
So,
but then again, we have to remember that the baby can never empty your breast as in 100% empty.
Okay.
It never happens.
So
the important part is as long as your baby is being fed, at least as
I
Simone said, 15 to 20 minutes per breast.
Intuitively, women, you as a nursing mother, you would know.
Yeah.
It's not like us who are so technical that we set a timer, and so as that's what I'm hearing you saying. Intuitively, as a nursing mother, you will know.
Yeah.
Switch from A to B,
Yeah.
left to right,
and
vice versa. But also,
if you think you don't know, your boobs will tell you.
I like that.
Yeah,
that's true.
Because, for example, if you start to breastfeed and she doesn't drain it out, for example,
yes, mom,
you get engorged because then it just starts to fill up, and it gets extremely hard and painful.
I can imagine.
And heavy. So you will know that you're full.
Right. So this is what I'm thinking too. Back to two things: having that support for the working mother who's also, breastfeeding to avoid potentially the engorge that heart, but equally the level of support from the midwives and lactation consultants, so you understand. I mean,
you understand what engorge means,
right.
For example.
I can see women going, really? You asked the question, how do you know it's empty? I mean, duh. But some probably don't.
But
so
these are real questions that people
Yeah.
have. But remember, you mentioned the midwife and the nurse and the maternity ward, but even your own grandmother or your mother or your friends who've had babies can also help you through these experiences.
A great source of information.
And remember, the more you put your baby on the breast, the more milk you're going to make, because often what a concern a mum has when she's breastfeeding is because you can't visually see the milk the baby's taking. You can't see 4 ounces, you can't see 6 ounces.
I don't want to belabor that, but more you use, the more you have.
Yeah. Supply demand.
That almost sounds like, if you got a bucket of water and you take it, and it'll empty. But you're saying use more, you'll get more.
Yeah,
Correct.
because your
Endless
body,
fountain.
your body is like, okay.
If only that could happen to our bank accounts.
Right.
I was thinking
very happy.
It's like the more the demand, more the supply.
Yeah. So it's like your body saying, okay, well, we're getting empty too fast. We need to fill up quicker, kind of thing.
You know what? Our bank accounts should do that.
I wish. That would be great.
No, but I commend you all, and I hope I was not in a way,
No.
whatever. But if
it's all part of the conversation.
Yeah. Thanks for the courage, and thanks to you and moms like you now and who've gone before and those who come after, and maybe more of us in society that would not see this as some taboo, not see this as something that we can't talk about and we have to whisper. And maybe when we see that mother by herself or with her family, whether at a football match or at a dinner, or whether that we are respectful, and that we see this as life in action. And so amazing, Miss Simone.
Even just a smile at a nursing mom can make her feel, okay, good, I feel
comfortable.
good.
Yes.
Because you're already wondering who's looking at me.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
So even just someone smiling, saying, like a wink or well done or can I get you anything?
Yeah, and they have all these little, I don't know what they're called, like capes.
The shawls.
And stuff that you put over. And it's all great to give you privacy, but your baby is suffocating under there.
I can imagine.
Like,
especially
it's hot.
this heat.
Exactly.
Jeez.
So it's great to have these little, I guess, capes to put over and to be discreet, but it's still hot for your baby, especially in Cayman.
Can you imagine, right? As you said that, and thanks for sharing that, because we think that's a good thing, but parents have done this, and older siblings. You get a sheet in the bed and you put it up and you tell a story underneath. Even in the coolest of rooms, at some point you're gonna open that sheet up
exactly
because it's got a little hot in there, right? So that is a good thing. So we can do stuff. Well, thank you for that very much. So, and for your amazing champion and support, Ms. Simone.
Oh, I love this topic.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention one thing, if you don't mind.
No, of course.
And that is the encouragement of pregnant and lactating mums to have their COVID vaccine, 19 vaccine. The UK Joint Committee of Vaccination and Immunisation, I had to read that in case I got that wrong, has been recommending that women who are pregnant and breastfeeding are offered the vaccine. There is no known risk associated with this type of vaccine, as these vaccines cannot replicate, they cannot cause infection for either mum or baby. So clinical trials of the Pfizer, Moderna and AstraZeneca vaccines are currently underway in the US. But in animals, there have been no concerns with respect to any issues or side effects. There's a large study at the moment going on in the US. 5,000 mums who were vaccinated when they were pregnant are currently being studied by the CDC prevention side of things to determine if there's any risk, and there are currently no safety concerns that have been reported to date. So it would appear there isn't a risk associated with the vaccine either in pregnancy or for lactating mums. So I just wanted to let everybody know that, and you can be vaccinated at the same time that any non-pregnant mum can. You just look at the HSA schedule for vaccines and turn up. And I think Chev wanted to add something.
And I can attest to that because I actually got vaccinated while I was breastfeeding my baby. So I have been vaccinated, fully vaccinated, and I'm still breastfeeding my baby, and neither of us are dying.
Well, I pray for your continued safety, not just with that, but with walking in the studio and driving. And I think if I can just read the rest of that part, Mr. Moores, you will read the information there. According to the CDC, based on how these vaccines work in the body, the COVID-19 vaccines are thought not to be a risk, not like we're thought, but anyway, but to lactating people or their breastfeeding babies. Recent reports have shown that breastfeeding people who have received this mRNA injection have antibodies in their breast milk, which could help protect their babies. But more data are needed to determine what protection these antibodies may provide.
That's just like how I was saying before. If I get a flu and my body is creating these antibodies, it goes down to the baby.
Yeah.
So
let's hope so. But I commend you for the courage and for, obviously the wonderful working environment, not just the space, but the colleagues who are supportive in the surrounding family, and Mr. Munto, a society that seems to appreciate that this is absolutely essential, for the continued health of mum as well as babe. And hopefully those who are listening to this are not put off because we were talking about nipples and breastfeeding and lactating and latching on and all that stuff. I'm glad that my parents, actually my mother, was able to breastfeed me, and I'm glad that mothers like you
there's that old saying says it takes a village. That is 100% accurate.
Yes, well,
and it will continue to be so.
But thank you so much.
Thank you.
It is amazing. So to our listeners, thanks for joining us. And if you are a breastfeeding mum or an expectant mum, and you're not sure, or you're not, there is support. There is, I'm sure, in the private sector, but I can say within HSA, an amazing team of, wonderful people. And if you feel discouraged, don't be. Just reach out and you look at help. Ladies, you have been a source of encouragement and inspiration. May God bless you. May you continue to have great success, not just with breastfeeding, but your children grow to be amazingly healthy people. So thank you so much, right?
Thank you.
All right. Today's Tuesday, is it not?
Last time we checked.
All right. I have to ask because some days meld into the next, and tomorrow, therefore, it's Wednesday. Well, join us for more talk today right after the midday news and midday meditation. In the morning, of course, be on the record for good information and political discussion. So until then, be blessed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, my.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and